WNYC Studios is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
Brian Lehrer on WNYC, Ask the Mayor, with Mayor Zoran Mamdani coming up after the 11 o'clock news. Right now, you know that every Tuesday we dig in a little on a story dealing with climate change or other aspects of public health, and today our topic is sunscreen. The risks of going without may not be as immediately threatening as Ebola or hantavirus or measles, but the long-term risks of skin cancer from overexposure are very real, and who wants the wrinkles either? There's also a viral topic online right now, which we're not going to settle in this segment, over the health risks of certain kinds of sunscreens, risks as identified by the nonprofit called the Environmental Working Group, and pushback from dermatologists who warn they risk scaring some people off from using sunscreen at all, which would be much, much worse from a public health standpoint than being too precise or too picky about what chemical is in some of them, especially when the alternatives can be significantly more expensive, the ones the Environmental Working Group prefers. But which sunscreen to choose? Chemical or mineral? Those are the two big categories. How much and how strong? And what about the coral reefs? Do you know how protecting them from your sunscreen might be an issue? So to talk about some of these choices, we are joined by Nancy Redd, a writer covering health and personal care at Wirecutter, the product recommendation service from the New York Times. Hey, Nancy, welcome to WNYC.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to talking about this.
First, before we even get to sunscreen, let's establish this. Dermatologists say being in the shade or physically blocking the sun with clothing, like hats or, long sleeve shirts, even when it's hot out, or umbrellas, is best. Sunscreen is for when that's not possible or you're not willing, right?
Yes, so sunscreen is for the parts of your body that are not covered by protective clothing. And it depends on the climate, it depends on the type of clothing. We actually have an incredible guide to sun protective clothing written by my incredible colleague, Sarah Gannett. And we, as a product recommendation site, have options for people who want to use chemical sunscreens, mineral sunscreens, sun protective clothing, or a combination of all.
So the American Academy of Dermatology says, quote, "The best type of sunscreen is the one you will use again and again," unquote. So when Wirecutter is naming a best sunscreen or several top recommendations, what are you looking for?
We are looking for a cosmetically elegant sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30, sun protective factor, that is for the body, water resistant, and for the face, something that you can feel comfortable in all day long without feeling greasy, without feeling like you have a white cast. We enjoy testing these sunscreens on a variety of different people, skin types, skin tones, body hair, facial hair, so we can find a sunscreen that will work for almost any person. Now, not every sunscreen will work for every person, but I guarantee that one of our picks, whether it's in our face sunscreen guide, our body sunscreen guide, or our reef safe sunscreen guide, will work for somebody.
So listeners, we are able to take a few suggestions on the phones or in texts for staying safe in the sun, or certainly questions for our guest, Nancy Redd from Wirecutter, 212-433-WNYC. Call or text 212-433-9692. You want to just describe for people for a second how they measure SPF? You mentioned SPF. This is the number that we see, on every container of sunscreen, sun protective factor, as you say, and at least 30 is recommended. Do you know what these numbers mean? Like 30 what? 60 what? 15 what?
Exactly. So SPF stands for sun protection factor, and that is how well a sunscreen protects against UVB rays. And you can find sunscreens and products marked SPF 5, SPF 50, even 100. Now, the minimum experts recommend is SPF 30. And the way that the scale works, we don't have time to get into it extensively, but basically anything more than SPF 30 marginally increases your protection. Most of our body sunscreen picks are SPF 50 and above. And when you look at this, some experts suggest buying lotions with higher SPF to account for common user error, to make sure you get that minimum SPF 50, because sometimes, I don't want to call you out, Brian, but I'd love to know your sunscreen habits. Sometimes we'll apply it once, we won't reapply it as suggested, whether it's every 80 minutes or every 2 hours. And when you do that, the efficacy of the sunscreen declines. Are you a good sunscreen user? Are you faithful with your sunscreen?
I think I'm a radical sunscreen user who
Really?
people don't even want to know. And
Oh, I do want to know. Tell me your sunscreen habits.
Well, I do try to do what you say, apply multiple times in a day if I'm going to be out in the sun for a lot of hours. I am, somebody who prefers usually the mineral sunscreen to avoid some of the chemicals that are in the chemical sunscreen. I know that's a controversial position as to whether that's needed or not. That's just my personal choice. And so, I'm into it.
I'm very proud of you. And I think what you're doing is exactly what we suggest you do it. We need to think about sunscreen as a part of our daily hygiene routine if we have exposed skin to the sun. You have to think about it like deodorant or brushing your teeth. Sometimes in certain climates and times, you should reapply multiple times a day. It is the number one way, as you mentioned in your intro, to protect against certain skin cancers. It diminishes hyperpigmentation. It helps prevent wrinkles from ultraviolet violet ray damage. And it's just a really important part of a healthy person's trajectory.
The other thing I do, by the way, since I go to baseball games sometimes, is I know, and I go to day games generally when I go, I know which seats are in the shade. So that's me.
So that's a hot tip. And because shade is the best way to protect your skin is to stay out of the sun.
You named in Wirecutter 4 best sunscreens, 2 chemical sunscreens and 2 mineral formulations. Can you talk about the difference between those 2 categories and why someone would prefer one to the other?
Absolutely. Okay, so mineral sunscreens contain active ingredients that act like a physical barrier between you and UV light. Okay, so they scatter the sun rays before they reach the skin surface. Chemical sunscreens contain active ingredients that absorb UV light. So, and then sometimes you'll occasionally find combo sunscreens that have a mix of both. And sunscreens are effective when applied correctly and often enough, generally speaking, okay? Mineral sunscreens, the difference is that over the years, when you compare them directly to chemical sunscreens, they tend to be harder to rub into the skin, and they leave what a white cast, a ghost face, which is when your skin can look streaky or ashy. But for people with highly sensitive skin, they're generally better as they're less prone to irritate it. I personally am someone who doesn't mind looking like Casper because I prefer a mineral sunscreen as well. But not everyone wants that. And so that's why we have a variety of recommendations that are chemical, sunscreens that are easier to rub in and usually absorb better. And I've been doing this for 6 years, and I'm so excited because sunscreens have improved so much from the time that I started testing these. They become much more cosmetically elegant. There are mineral sunscreens that once you've rubbed them in and let them dry down for about 15 minutes, which is the recommendation before you go out into the world, you generally speaking can't tell much of a difference.
Let's take a phone call. Sam in Queens, you're on WNYC. Hi, Sam.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me. I was just going to recommend an app that actually an ex of mine got me onto. She introduced me to it. It's called Yuka. I don't know if you've heard of this. You spell it Yuka. It's a French-based company, and it allows you to scan the barcodes of cosmetic products as well as like food. So when you go grocery shopping, or if you go to your a CVS or Walgreens, you can scan items and it tells you the health benefits or the chemicals that come into certain products. But, the other day I was going to a Mets game and I needed a new brand of sunblock, so I went to the CVS and I was scanning all the barcodes for the sunscreens, and most of them have chemicals, according to Yuka, that it explains also which are the healthiest and which have chemicals that are not even allowed in the EU. And amazingly, CeraVe, don't use that, whatever you do, that has a high-risk chemical called DHT, which they explain all about on the app. But the best one, the safest one, was the CVS brand Daily Mineral Zinc Face Stick sunscreen, and it was only a couple bucks. It had a 93. They said it's the safest one, and I don't mind the feeling of mineral at all. It's totally good by me.
Sam could set up his own Wirecutter with that level of detail.
The next time he goes to the Mets game, he can take your tip, find the shady part, find the shady seats.
There you go. This brings us, I guess, unavoidably to the environmental working group controversy, which we're not going to debate in this segment, as I said, but it is about chemicals in the chemical sunscreens that the working group says could be endocrine disruptors. For example, I don't know about the particular chemical that the caller shouted out there as one he would avoid, but I think the point is that the FDA has approved everything, chemical or mineral, that you can find on the store shelves in the United States, and that's at least one guideline, if you trust the FDA, to go by.
Right. So in the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration regulates sunscreens as over-the-counter drugs, not cosmetics. So there are ingredients that are allowed to be used as active ingredients in sunscreens. And so for mineral sunscreens, there's two: zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, and they are recognized as safe and effective. And experts maintain that chemical sunscreens are safe and effective. And there's been a lot of talk. We're excited. The FDA is working with sunscreen makers to determine the safety and efficacy of new active ingredients. But in the meantime, dermatologists and other experts we have spoken to have said there's no reason to stop using sunscreen. Protecting your skin is extremely important to prevent skin cancer and other issues.
Right. And the caller mentioned things that are or aren't approved in Europe. And there is a difference, right? I've heard some people complain about things that they would like to get here that aren't approved by the FDA but are approved in Europe. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, very much so. I have some of the most straight-laced friends who wouldn't take 12 items in the 10-item or less checkout at the grocery store, but they smuggle in sunscreens from other countries.
Why?
So U.S. sunscreens are really behind because the FDA hasn't approved any new sunscreen ingredients in literally nearly 3 decades. We're working on it. There's a new one on the horizon, but other countries have approved a variety of sunscreen filters that can possibly outperform FDA-approved active ingredients when it comes to protection, in particular, UVA protection. So if you think about UVA and UVB rays, UVA, I like to use the colloquial A is for aging, B is for burning. So Skin Feel and anti-aging overseas sunscreens, allegedly, are way ahead of the ones that we have in America. So as we know, it's very easy to purchase imported sunscreens, and many people do. I would just like to say my guys focus on FDA-approved actives, but again, the sunscreen you will wear, the sun protection you will perform is the most important.
Shanti in South Orange, you're on WNYC with Nancy Red from Wirecutter on sunscreen. Hi, Shanti.
Hi. Oh, great. My question is about the utility of sunscreen for cancer prevention in darker skinned people. I'm an African-American woman. I'm in my 50s. I've been wearing sunscreen since I was a teenager for anti-aging purposes. But it's my understanding that we are much more likely to get a kind of skin cancer that's actually autoimmune. Like the kind Bob Marley had, it tends to appear on the palms of our hands or the bottoms of our feet, areas that don't get a lot of sun exposure. There's a lot of research out there that suggests, right, that we are much less likely to get the kinds of cancers that come from sun exposure. And so I wonder about the utility of it. Like, do we really need to be slathering our bodies in these most days for cancer prevention? Because I do worry about the chemical burden of it. You know, I have teenagers now, they wear sunscreen. I worry about the endocrine disruption of it. So I wonder about sort of like the blanket advisory to wear it and whether some of us really do need it for skin cancer prevention.
I'm so excited to talk to you. This is so up my alley and something I'm very passionate about as an African-American person who, even though I am the author of a sunscreen guide, I'm also highly aware of the type of skin cancer that is prevalent in people of color that has nothing to do with the skin. It's one of the reasons that I feel so fortunate to have this position because I get to speak to so many incredible experts like Jenna Lester of the Skin of Color Society. She's a dermatologist, along with so many other dermatologists who say, yes, people of color, people with melanated skin need to wear sunscreen. We need sunscreen too, because we can get not only that type of skin cancer that has nothing to do with the sun, but also sun-related skin cancer. I'm sure many of your callers, their ears are perking up because they have friends who are of color who have recently had skin cancer. It's more prevalent because of, you know, a variety of reasons. So, and I think the misconception that there are people out there who don't need sunscreen can be problematic, which is why we have a variety of options. Whether you want to protect your teenagers with a giant sun hat, long sleeve clothing, rash guards when swimming, chemical sunscreens or mineral sunscreens, it's important for every single person all year round from 6 months to 160 years old to protect their skin from the sun. It's also unrelated to sunscreen, but related to this, seeing a dermatologist and making that part of your health ritual and routine annually, I think is extremely important so they can give you a head-to-toe scan and find things like unusual moles, unusual spots on your fingernails. If you're someone of personal color, look at your nails right now. If you see an interesting spot that you have not noticed before, go to the dermatologist. It's one of the first signs of skin cancer in people of color. So I totally understand your concerns. I think that, unfortunately, it means that you have more things to be concerned about rather than fewer.
Shanti, thank you for raising that. Very useful for a lot of listeners, I'm sure. As we start to run out of time, I will just cite what one other caller who we're not going to have time for says. She says she got eye cancer from the sun, eye cancer. So wants to highlight the importance of wearing sunglasses as well as sunscreen. But since you're Wirecutter, you end all this narrative in your article with actual picks for chemical and mineral sunscreens. You want to give us the short version?
Absolutely. We have recommended for many years Thrive sunscreen, which is a reef-friendly mineral sunscreen. We also recommend Banana Boat Sheer Sensitive, which is a new formulation this year, which is very similar to a formulation that we recommended for years. We did brand concealed testing, and both of these did very well this year again. My favorite longtime pick for the budget conscious is the Equate Sport. It comes in a giant bottle. It's the least expensive sunscreen we've ever tested at about 40 cents an ounce. But when you do brand concealed testing, almost everyone who wears chemical sunscreens falls in love with it, and they're shocked when they find out it's just 40 cents. And we also recommend a very minimalistic ingredient, reef-safe mineral sunscreen, Badger's SPF Adventure Mineral Cream. It's a really great sunscreen, and it's the runner-up to Thrive in the Reef Safe Guide, and it's fragrance-free.
And what we haven't gotten to in this segment, I will acknowledge, is the issue of the coral reefs for people who, swim in the ocean primarily. There are some sunscreens that are considered safer environmentally. We've been focusing on the human health safety issues, but there are also coral reef safety issues. So just to say, listeners, as you dig a little more into this for your personal choices, that is something else to consider. But we have to leave it there with Nancy Redd, a writer covering health and personal care at Wirecutter, the product recommendation service for the New York Times. Nancy, this was so useful for a lot of people, I think, here on the 2nd of June. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.